Blending Families, Merging Households with Kids 8 to 18 by Trevor Mullineaux and Marianne Corinch. Narrated by Angela Brazil. Disclaimer. The cases described in this book are based on incidents. However, except when otherwise specified, names and specific details have been changed at the request of interviewees who wish to remain anonymous. Therefore, any likeness that might be found with any living individual, except when specified, is unintended. Author's note. Trevor talks about her own blended families, past and present. My dad's mother died when he was 11 years old. He was the oldest of 4 siblings, with the youngest being just 2. The family never spoke of it. They were an Irish Catholic brood back in the 1940s, when more young mothers than today were dying in childbirth or female diseases. When they left young ones behind, the drill was for the father to find a new mother for his children. My father, his brother, and 2 sisters were told to go across the street and stay for a few days. The funeral happened, and after that, they went back home and were told never to speak of it again. My grandfather remarried, thinking that he was giving his children a loving woman to care for them. She turned out to be mean-spirited. On his deathbed, my father said that one of the worst things about growing up involved Frank, his stepbrother. My father's stepmother made sure that Frank got his orange juice and a newspaper delivered to his room every morning. For everyone else, the rules were different, all day long. As an aftermath to this already bad story, Frank ran off with my Uncle Tommy's first wife, and she took the kids. In other words, he ran off with his stepbrother's wife and 2 children. This didn't taint my view of blended families, because I didn't even know how awful my father's life was until after I had a blended family of my own. I had a few years of the single life after earning my MBA, and then met and married a divorced man with 2 young children. Abruptly, I went from a self-focused Sex and the City life to an other-focused world of instant mom. It also didn't take long until I was both a stepmom and a biological mom. It was at that point I realized something important for every parent who undertakes blending families. As rich, intimate, and wonderful as the bond between a step-parent and child can be, it differs in fundamental, animal ways from the relationship with biological children. We can decide to care for, and may even come to love, another person's children, but nature gives us a relationship with our biological children that has nothing to do with decisions. I realized this acutely when my first child was an infant. She smelled like flowers to me. It was a lovely, enticing smell. When I held her, and I had a stepchild on my lap at the same time, I was struck by the difference in smell between the 2 of them. Biology gives us certain triggers so that we want to be near our children. This kind of response has clear advantages for any species, since the urge for a mother to stay close to her young helps protect against predators. It occurred to me when I noticed the difference in smell that, since I wasn't experiencing the biological cues telling me to be close to my stepchildren, I had to make a conscious decision to put myself there. I had to develop a level of sensitivity to their needs, because it wasn't coming naturally to me. For a taste of how our family blended, or at least my husband's 2 children and our 2 children came together forever, listen to the short essay that my biological daughter, Olivia, wrote about her half-sister, Michelle. It's inserted at the end of the chapter on preteens and before the one on teens, because Olivia is recalling an event that occurred when she was 10 and Michelle was 16. Michelle and her brother Spencer have been a part of my life throughout my biological children's lives, nonstop, no matter what happened between their father and me. When Olivia turned 16 and she was allowed to take one friend on a special trip, the one friend she chose was Michelle. In marrying Vinny, when my children were 11 and 13, he and I committed to yet another blending adventure. His 12-year-old daughter, Eva, had been an only child until she moved in with us during the week because she was attending the same school as my daughter and we lived close to it. She would go back to being an only child on the weekends that she spent with her mother, whose home was a much greater distance from the school. So, apart from the usual challenges associated with blending, Eva now had to deal with sharing the spotlight with siblings. She brought a great attitude to the process and made it clear that having a sister and brother was a good thing for her. We could have had a rocky start, though. The day before Vinny and I were getting married, we faced our first test about how these children of ours would feel about each other and about the fairness of our parenting. When Eva, accompanied by her BFF, was brought to the hotel where the ceremony would take place, she was told that the only room available was a suite. The front desk checked her and her friend into it. Vinny and I didn't even have a suite. We knew if we let her stay there, it would cause resentment with her new step-siblings. So she and her friend moved into our room, and Vinny and I took the suite. The kids saw that he and I stood together on the decision, and that we were being fair to everyone. That simple event helped us set the tone for our joint venture as parents/step-parents. Now that you know a little of my personal experience of hoop jumping, holding my ground, and celebrating related to the blending process, I want to take you back a generation to the unions of my divorced parents that led to both wonderful and odd outcomes. In the years I've been married to Vinny, and in the years I've been working with Marianne on books about relationships, neither had ever heard me talk about my stepmother until the spring of 2015. I had not even suggested that I had a stepmother. She was simply the woman who married my father when I was already an adult. We had no connection, and since she didn't seem to be present physically or emotionally during my father's prolonged, fatal illness, she didn't occupy a spot in my thoughts. In some ways, unrelated to my father, she turned out to be rather courageous. I still never thought of her as part of my family, though. The step that Vinny and Marianne have heard a lot about is Howard Stevenson, the man my mother married when I was in my mid-20s. My mom brought 4 young adult women into the family, and Howard brought 3 sons, the youngest of whom was 14 when the families blended. Both my mom and Howard have shown fairness and caring with all 7 children in many ways, from time and attention to material resources. Howard even wrote the foreword for my first book, Forging Healthy Connections. He is a professor emeritus at Harvard University, the author of Getting to Giving, Fundraising the Entrepreneurial Way, and well known for his work in entrepreneurship. And he openly credits my mom, his wife of more than 25 years now, as being the partner who made much of his success possible. Here's the simple lesson of how my mother and Howard created a blended family. They put each other first and respected each other's children. Their method of blending has influenced me profoundly. They have had clarity in their intentions regarding each other and all 7 children in the family. Naturally, we've had disagreements and temporary rifts, but we share a value system that keeps us coming back to each other as a family.